Hey there, everybody. It's Dave here and Darren over there. On today's Two Old Bluggers. Now, we've got a great and another ex-GM in the building. This one from the Bears. And as you can tell, I'm dripping sarcasm from my lips, but that's what it is. Teasley said, why not Ryan Pace to the mix? Meanwhile, our O-line was auditioning for a horror movie with all the sacks last year. If it continues, will Murray moonwalk out of trouble? Great question. He may need to. Sorsby is gambling his way into the league. We're going to discuss that. Za'Darius Smith unretiring? Question mark? Who knows? And watch before your blood pressure spikes. Vikings faithful, SKOL or facepalm. We should all be used to it by now. And we're going to roast it all next on Two Old Bluggers. Rock. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikingsland with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. Hey there, everybody. It's Dave here, Darren over there. Like I said before, I want to welcome you to the chat. We've got Chuck here. We've got my 2 cents worth and Biggs. Hello, Biggs. Thank you all for joining us this late evening because Darren was playing fast pitch softball, right?
I was, and now
Did it
I'm not.
involve kegs on the bases?
That's after. That's after the
after.
game. Yeah, that's after the game. Yeah.
Okay. So how'd you do?
Lost in the semifinals. So lost 3-2. You know, some really good game, well pitched, but just didn't get string enough hits and runs together on our end of things. Happens sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And as Norsefius reminds us, happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there.
Indeed.
Wasn't what I was going to say, but anyways.
Including me and Dave.
What I was going to say. But we're going to start this one out. We entitled it Pace Risk, Sack Fix. We're going to start out with theme 1. Which, of course, is the best place to start.
It is.
Now, we're going to go. Teasley is continuing to rebuild the front office.
Brick by brick, Dave. Last week we talked about how Teasley, who's been, he's on week 3 as the Vikings general manager, I think, since he got hired. And last week we learned that he's starting to remodel the Vikings front office. And that meant that, he added 4 people from the front office left, 2 came in. Out was Demetrius Washington, who was assistant general manager, the former assistant general manager for the Vikings. He was out. Also, Jamal Stevenson, who had been director of pro personnel, out. Pat Roberts, assistant director of college scouting, out. And then Sally Clavel, who was a pro scout, also out. In, though, came Trent Kirchner, who Nolan Teasley knew quite well and had worked with Seattle, and as well as Andrew Healy from the Browns. Both of those guys coming in reportedly as assistant general managers, although I checked the Vikings website on yesterday, and they still don't have any of these guys listed on there. They'll eventually what their titles are. So we're going by what's been reported. And I think Alec Lewis and Kevin Seifert and those guys, they've got it down pat. We can be pretty sure that assistant general manager is what these 2 guys are going to be doing, but still hasn't been officially put on the Vikings website yet.
Is that Teasley's next move to get the IT guy motivated enough to update the site?
It'd be, yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know if they're waiting to announce or something like that officially, but anyhow, no biggie. But this week we learned two more names. The Teasley has added a couple of more guys to the Vikings front office again to remodel. One is Azzam Kapadia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but another guy that Teasley has poached from the Seattle organization. Kapadia, we don't know a whole lot about, Dave. He was a pro scout with the Seahawks, and now he's getting to be assistant director of pro scouting for the Vikings, which I think is a new position that Teasley has created. I don't think they had that position in the previous front office under Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And then the other guy that they added was Ryan Pace from the former Chicago Bears general manager. And Kapadia is a guy that he must be pretty young because, again, we don't know a whole lot about him. We know he was a pro scout, and he actually got his start in the NFL in 2023. He was an intern with Seattle, and recently, and he was a graduate of the University of Virginia in 2023. So not an old guy. Seems like he's caught the eye of Teasley and might be a bit of a rising star in the scouting assessment world, which is good. And we talked last week about how it'd be good for the Vikings. We're encouraged that the Vikings and Teasley's bringing in some new perspective, new voices, new blood to the Vikings front office. So he's done that with Kapadia, and he's also done it with Ryan Pace. Again, a lot of us don't know about Ryan Kapadia, but of course we do know a lot about Ryan Pace. And the question that I think a lot of Vikings fans are asking, and you asked it as well, Dave, is why did they hire Ryan Pace, who gets fired from a divisional rival and was replaced by Ryan Poles, who you had a picture up of him a little bit earlier in 2021. And I think it definitely is a fair question, because if you look at Ryan Pace, he was the general manager in Chicago from 2015 to 2021. They went in that time 48-65 during his time as general manager. Not a very successful run there as a general manager. However, when you look at his overall record, he did put together the Chicago Bears team in 2018 that won a divisional title. Went 12-4, won the NFC North, and that would have been the first time they'd won the NFC North since 2010. So he did build that team. They also made the playoffs in 2020. But overall, and that 2018 team was a pretty good team, particularly on the defensive side. They were very, very strong on the defensive side. We remember those days. The Vikings had a lot of trouble with them, but still 48-65, not an impressive record. I think the thing that struck me about when you look at Pace's record is that he took some pretty significant big swings as a general manager. He traded a couple of number ones for Khalil Mack and brought him in, and that was a move that I think worked out well for the Bears overall. They moved up one spot in the 2017 draft to get what they thought was their quarterback of the future in Mitch Trubisky. And then in the 2021 draft, Dave, they took an even bigger swing and moved up many more spots, 7, I believe, to select Justin Fields, who was going to replace Trubisky as the next franchise quarterback for the Bears. So some big swings taken by Ryan Pace there. I think that the biggest fault that you can find with him overall is that he did not get the quarterback, equation right. Does that sound familiar, Viking fans?
It sure does.
Quite so. But that was the big fault by him. But I think that myself, again, Pace is there, and now Pace is the second former general manager that is now part of the Vikings front office, along with Ryan Grigson, who is also still with the Vikings front office and is going to be, we understand, continue to be employed by the Vikings, but in a different title than assistant general manager. But you've got two former general managers there, and you start wondering, Dave, about, is this too many voices, too many cooks in the kitchen, perhaps, for Nolan Teasley, when you've got two ex-general managers who are advising him? I don't think I worry about that too much, because I think that there is value in having guys who have done the job before. For a guy like Teasley, who is a first time general manager, I think Pace can, and Grigson in particular, can tell them, when they were in the job, what they felt that they did right, what they didn't do right, what they might have done differently. I think there's knowledge sharing there that can be useful for Teasley, and particularly with Pace, Dave. Fans, I think, people are going to get upset and poke holes at any hire that the Vikings make, particularly when you pick a guy who was fired as a general manager from a divisional rival that we all hate. But I still think that, though, when you look at Pace's, he's reportedly going to be, his job title is football advisor. That is so general, it's hard to tell. It's impossible for us to tell exactly what Ryan Pace's job description is. The only way we get that is if the Vikings gave us the job description, which they are not going to do. But to me, it's unclear to us what role, how big of an influence Ryan Pace is going to have, and how big of a say he's going to have in the Vikings personnel moves and in the front office. But I think overall he is going to be a sounding board for Nolan Teasley, and that's okay by me. We do know that Teasley is the general manager. He has full control over the 53-man roster. And so he's going to take different perspectives, but it's going to be up to him to sift through all that information, all of that advice. But ultimately, the decisions that he makes, every roster move that the Vikings do, whether it's trading guys, cutting guys, drafting guys, adding guys to the practice squad, that's all going to be on him at this point in time. And he's just getting, again, as many voices as he can. And I know people, again, people criticize the Vikings or any team when they hire what they consider a failed general manager to your front office. The other thing is that the guys that, I think Viking fans really want Teasley to be listening to would be guys like Howie Roseman or John Snyder, successful GMs who have won Super Bowls. But the problem is, Dave, they're successful and they already have a job.
They're already employed.
They're already employed and will be employed for a long time. So if you want another sounding board, inevitably you're picking a guy who has been fired as a general manager somewhere else, and people are going to be upset about that and think that the advice they're going to give is bad advice. I don't think there's any proof of that. And again, if Teasley is as good as we think and we hope he is, he'll take what they're saying, and ultimately it's going to be his decision on all the personnel stuff, and it's up to him to sift through that information and make the right decision for the Vikings. Ryan Pace, I don't think, is going to lead to a bunch of bad decisions made by Teasley. He's a sounding board. He's a football advisor, and he did the job for a long time at the NFL level. And I think there's value in having those kind of guys. But anything that Teasley does right or wrong, it's going to be in my mind, is going to be on Teasley, not on Ryan Pace or Ryan Grigson.
Exactly. And earlier in the week, on Who Will Be King, our NFC North show, was saying, what are we, a glutton for punishment? Why are we getting these guys? And Pay, the representative for the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fan Channel, Bears fan, said actually Pace wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, really? He goes, no. They got a lot of Pro Bowlers and All Pros and better track record than the present GM of the Bears, Ryan Poles. He says his weakness was overpaying veterans and risky trades that didn't pan out famously, i.e. at quarterback. And so I said, well, okay. So I looked at it. Where are the Pro Bowlers / All Pros that he drafted? And there are Eddie Jackson, safety; Tariq Cohen, running back, kick returner; Jordan Howard, running back, in the 5th round. Mitch Trubisky went to a Pro Bowl. Believe it or not, before he failed.
Pro Bowl. Replacement.
And notable additions were Khalil Mack, Allen Robinson, and Akeem Hicks. And we know Mack and Hicks gave us all sorts of fits. So,
they did. And
Roquan
Smith is a draft pick of him and a Pro Bowler. I believe Jalen Johnson was a draft pick of during Ryan Pace's time. He was an excellent cornerback. So you look at their draft record under Pace, not spectacular, but not not abysmal either. Certainly not as abysmal as the Vikings drafting has been in recent times.
Obviously, Broski Bear thinks differently. Said Pace sucked, and he paid guys way over their age. Now, that's happened into the Vikings, too. As we all know, Zimmer loved his guys and would pay him forever. And obviously, Spielman with that. But it is interesting that Teasley keeps making moves. He's been quite aggressive. We know that didn't happen under Adolfo Mensa. So far, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on the questionable ones, whether it be Pace or Grigson. And we'll go on from there.
Yeah, and some people may prefer that if you're going to take on a football advisor to be taking on up-and-comers, right? Like maybe people that didn't do the GM job before and hadn't been fired somewhere else, but maybe could be GMs in the future. But that's what Trent Kirshner is, right? That's what that Healy is in a way. They've been if the Vikings are really successful as a team under Teasley and win multiple NFC North divisional titles, get to the Super Bowl and win one, teams are going to be poaching our front office for the guys Teasley hired.
Right, exactly.
But again, there's always going to be skepticism about hiring guys who did the job somewhere else and got turfed because of poor performance of the team. But again, Teasley's a guy calling the shots. If he feels that Ryan Pace is a good addition and a valued voice in there, and Ryan Grigson is too, like you said, Dave, we got to give him the benefit of the doubt at this point. Was very highly regarded before he became a Vikings general manager, and everybody seems that what I've seen from the takes on Teasley getting the Vikings job is that the Vikings made a good hire here. So I think you got to trust that he is going to make good hires as well in the front office.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. We'll find out. It's going to take a few years, but we'll find out.
And again, football advisor, what does that exactly mean? Like it's not like Pace is going to be in there calling all the shots.
He's moving to Minnesota.
And he doesn't have to. He could work remotely, right?
I think he's working from his home, wherever that is. I heard like Virginia or someplace. And he'll just, he'll be on the phone. He'll be, hey, Ryan, I got this question. And Teasley will ask a question, and Ryan go, well, I will do this. And then Teasley will go, that's either good advice or I'm going to do the exact opposite. One or two.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's not like he's running the draft room. It's not like he's calling the shots on any trades we do or any players that we
pick up. He's just an advisor.
But does he have an opinion on those guys? Well, yeah, and he was working with the Falcons up to this point, so he stayed in the game, in the NFL game, and evaluating players and what teams are doing and that sort of stuff. So again, another voice, an experienced voice, and we'll see how it goes.
I wonder if he advised to release Kirk Cousins. Sorry, a little personal bias getting in there. Don't want that to happen. Hey there, Doug. It is what it is. Well, that's theme 1. Now on to theme 2. And this one's going to be interesting.
We hope so.
Do we have a problem
with sacks? I think we do. Yeah, the one of the things that has been a constant during Kevin O'Connell's time as head coach here since 2022, Dave, is that the Vikings have given up a lot of quarterback sacks. 203 from 2022 to 2025. And if that sounds like a lot to you, that's because it is. It's the 5th most in the NFL. Only the Giants, the Browns, the Titans, and the Jets have given up more sacks during that period than the Vikings. And that's not the kind of company you want to be keeping, Dave. If most people would have figured out that those teams, the Giants have only made the playoff. They've made the playoffs in 2022, but nobody else amongst that group, I think, has made the playoffs at all during that time period. And those franchises have been pretty poor record-wise. The Vikings have done pretty well overall, despite having all those sacks. But there's been a few, so it's a problem. And there's been a couple of, I think, theories as to why that is the case. The one that we hear and we talk about too in the past has been that Kevin O'Connell's offense and the way that his passing game, particularly his passing game and the routes that he's looking for, and that he's always hunting for explosive plays in the passing game, that's those long developing routes that he's looking for causes our Vikings quarterbacks to hold on to the ball just a bit longer than most teams do, which inevitably forces the offensive line to hold up their blocks longer, which inevitably leads to more sacks. If you're compared to if you're getting rid of the ball in under 3 seconds or even a little bit less than that. So that is one theory for why the sacks have been high during Kevin O'Connell's time. Not all on the offensive line. The other theory is that because Kevin O'Connell loves to throw the ball, and there's a perception out there, which I think is somewhat earned, that Kevin O'Connell doesn't commit to the running game and that he doesn't stick to it.
Really?
And so in points where it would make sense or be favorable to run, he's still going to pass. And also part of the problem has been that the Vikings have not really had a very good or efficient running game during his whole time as head coach. So even when they do run, they don't get a lot out of it. And so that forces them into long down and distance situations where you got to pass, which allows the other defenses to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. So those are two of the main factors that have been cited for why the Vikings have given up a lot of sacks in Kevin O'Connell's time. And I think that those do have merit. The question is, what can be done to fix it? And can it get any better? And Dave, you went to artificial intelligence, Grok, to look at this stuff and see if you could find any research.
Mainly sourced for the numbers, what used to be Football Focus, and PFF did screenshots because they're behind the paywall. Screenshots, threw them into Grok so the Grok could read them, and then Grok used some other sources as well. You have Pro Football, PFA, I think it is, and or PFR, and some other ones, SIS data, things like that. And they computed all these rates that we're seeing right here.
And it came up with some pretty interesting data, which I'm not going to all get into today. But the main one was talking about the quarterbacks holding the ball too long and how much of the sacks are the quarterback's responsible.
Attributed to the quarterback.
And it's been, you went through 2024 and 2025, not 2023 and 2022, but in 2024 and 2025, you see the numbers up there. The stats that you got attributed 21 quarterback sacks that the quarterbacks were responsible for in both of those years. And that in 2024, that was 42.9% of the sacks. And in last year was 35.6, which is pretty consistent overall. And I forgot to mention that in the 4 years that Kevin O'Connell's been head coach, 2022, the Vikings gave up 46 sacks, which is actually the least that they've given up in the 4 years. 2023, they gave up 49. 2024, 49 sacks. Last year, gave up 60, a whopping 60. So that's how you get to 203. But we can see that in the past 2 years, quarterbacks have been, largely responsible for a lot of the sacks here, according to the stats that we got. And again, now, like the whole, go ahead.
Just out of the 35.6% for last year, if you're curious where that ranks among all 32 teams, that's 18th. which sort of surprised me. I didn't expect it that high.
Yeah.
Per se, but that's what it was. I've got it up beneath. They range from a low QB attributed sacks at Miami at 15.8%. They were number one in that category. To a high of Pittsburgh at 54.8%. So we tend to think that the QB holding the ball and the other stuff it lists there, holding the ball too long, mobility, escapability issues, coverage sacks, other than immediate O-line failure is what is categorized to the quarterback, that they are horrible. Now, 42.9% the year before with Sam Darnold would get you ranking around 26th out of 32.
Yeah.
Just to golly gee you. But it is different. And then talking about holding on the ball too long, actually, we don't. There's teams that hold it on longer than we do. Now, does that mean they're good? No, not at all. But it's a problem.
It is, and
we want to be closer to that, 10-15% range, not 35.
I think, and particularly in 2025, Dave, I think there were some other factors besides the routes that Kevin O'Connell calls being longer developing and that sort of thing that led to a lot of quarterback sacks and the quarterbacks being responsible for a lot of them. I think in 2025, part of it would be just poor quarterback decision making under pressure and inexperience, namely with J.J. McCarthy and Max Brosmer, that saw them taking more sacks than I think a veteran may have taken. And then also a big issue was just the pure chaos that occurred on the Vikings offensive line last year, where you had 26 different offensive line combinations, and you only had 83 offensive snaps where our ideal starting five offensive linemen played together.
Out of 1,070 offensive snaps, 83.
83 was where Brian O'Neill, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and Christian Darrisaw played together. 83. And
that's like 8%, if that. It's and of course that meant that because that happened, that meant that a lot of the reserves like Justin SKOL and Blake Randall in particular ended up playing more than the Vikings would have liked, and they're backups, right? So they're not as good as the starters, and so there's going to be a decline in offensive line play when that happens, and you would think more quarterback pressures and more quarterback sacks, but I think that even if what happened in 2025, I don't think hopefully won't be repeated again in 2026. But, the fact that the Vikings have given up at least 46 sacks in every season under Kevin O'Connell is clearly not great. And I remember seeing a stat in 2024, Dave, when Darnold was getting sacked, and that seemed to be a problem. And, it pointed to the fact that sacks are drive killers, because that stat I remember, and it wasn't for the full season, but at that, whatever point in time it was, and it was late in the year, the stat was that the Vikings had never converted a first down on a drive where Darnold had been sacked. So that again, that just goes to show that sacks are often drive killers. If you give up a sack, your chance of getting a first down and moving the ball are pretty tough. So how is 2026 going to be different? How are the Vikings going to reverse this thing where they're giving up 40 and, in the high 40s or more in sacks every year and not giving up these drive killing plays? I don't think that we can expect
Kevin O'Connell will change his offensive philosophy much because I think he feels that he wants to hunt explosives, and he thinks that that's the best way to operate the passing game, and we have the personnel to do that. But he has talked about the importance of having, particularly last year and the struggles, and I think he's continued with that in the offseason, about having a better running game, a more efficient running game this season that will allow him to lean into the run a bit more and maybe not just have to pass all the time. And I think the hiring of Frank Smith as assistant head coach, who orchestrated a very effective running game in Miami, plus replacing Chris Cooper with Keith Carter as the offensive line coach, that's going to lead to changes in how, and it is leading to changes in how the Vikings run block and how it's taught. And I think that if Smith and Carter can get the Vikings run game really rolling in 2026, or at least getting it into the top half of the league, 15 or higher than that, then Kevin O'Connell won't have to lean on the pass so much. He won't have to be facing so many second and longs and third and longs where he feels he has to pass. And so the less you're into obvious passing situations, I think that's going to help your offensive line. It's going to help prevent sacks. So that is one thing that I think that they've done, changed on the coaching side of things and in the run blocking scheme side of things, that may lead to improvements where they don't have to pass as much, or when they do pass, it's not in such obvious passing situations. I think that, the other thing that we can expect is that, or hopefully we can expect, is that the injury luck with the Vikings offensive line won't be quite as bad as it was in 2026. So if you've got your preferred starting five playing the majority of the offensive snaps in 2026, not just 8% of it like it was last year, that's just going to lead to, I think, more cohesiveness and better execution that in the run blocking and the pass blocking, and that's going to lead to more effective offense and more effective running game and passing game as well, and it's going to lead to less sacks. And I think, again, if you got your top talent on the field blocking for your quarterback all the time, not backups, that's going to lead to less sacks. The other thing that I think is going to help is assuming, and this is still an assumption because we do have a quarterback competition going on, Dave.
No,
is that if assuming Kyler Murray wins the starting quarterback job, which I do expect will happen, Murray is by far the most mobile Vikings quarterback we've had probably since Dante Culpepper. And he's also pretty good at avoiding sacks during his career. If you look at his 7 years or 8 years 7 years, 7 years in the league, outside of the rookie year when he was sacked 48 times, the most he's been sacked, and I realize that in a couple of these years he missed a significant amount of the season, but in the other 6 seasons, the most he's been sacked is 31, and that was in 2021. In 2024, he played all 17 games for Arizona. He threw for 541 passes, and he was sacked just 30 times. So, if Murray is your starter with the Vikings, even in a different offensive system than he had in Arizona, and it seemed to me that they were much more focused on the quick game than the Vikings usually are, but his mobility and his track record of avoiding sacks, I think, it indicate that he'll be able to do a better job than Kirk Cousins did, certainly, and Sam Darnold did and McCarthy did while playing in the Kevin O'Connell offense. Nothing's guaranteed, of course, in the NFL, but I think those are some of the reasons why I think the Vikings' habit of giving up a lot of sacks on offense in the past is going to go down substantially in 2026. And if they're able to do that, I think this offense is going to be very, very successful and be a big problem for the NFL.
I agree with you, and I think a better running game, and hopefully it is, with Smith and Carter influencing that. Now, Carter, you talked about those 4 teams. Carter was on 2 of them during parts of that time period. I did not dig into the years he was on those teams, but he was during parts of that time period. But I'm hoping with an improved run game, different blocking, different motivation, right? that they step up. And with Darisaw fully healed, O'Neal fully healed, Fries fully healed, everybody's back to 100%. Donovan Jackson's hands fully healed. And you got Brandell been snapping all summer, that we should have a good line. Now, ESPN's Mike Clay predicts us to be ranked 11th on offensive line. Grok feels that's conservative. Grok thinks we're going to be top 10, and if everybody stays healthy, top 5 compared to the rest of the league. And hopefully the computers got it right, because we sure could use it.
We could. And the health is a big issue for every NFL team on the offensive line. And we know, I feel, I have no stats to back this up, but I feel like the offensive linemen, that's the unit that has the most injury attrition of any position in the NFL.
They play every snap on the offense.
Yeah. So I think the Vikings they've improved the depth at the tackle spot, but I think the concern is in the interior once again. If Jackson goes down or Brandel goes down or Fries goes down, like, is Henry Bird going to be the guy that steps in? Is it Joe Huber? Is it Michael
Walter
Jurgens?
Rouse moving the guard?
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff.
There's a lot of unknowns there that if we have injury problems there, you could be seeing a big drop off in play in the interior, which is going to impact the quarterback and the pressure that he's getting and potentially the amount of sacks that he's taking. So we'll see how it goes. Again, improved health. It's just so important for the offensive line, and the Vikings didn't get much of it last year on the offensive line. So you can't guarantee injury luck. It's completely random, but at some point in time, the roulette wheel goes in your favor. And I think
and it's due to on the offensive line. So, hey, let's hope it all turns around.
We do.
No matter who's the quarterback. And Biggs, you asked me time to throw for the Wee Widow one. I don't have it broken down by the Wee Widow one, but Arizona was 25th in time to throw last season at 2.73 seconds. And we were 20th at 2.697 or 2.69 seconds for the numbers. So just to let you know. All right, that is theme 2. What comes after theme 2?
Theme 3. Always.
And
cue the theme music.
Come on, open up. Here we go. This week in Vikingsland.
Couple items to get to today, Dave, on This Week in Vikingsland in our quiet time of football news. So folks have decided this week, it seems, that the Vikings should be in on the Brendan Sorsby sweepstakes. There's been a few instances of that. Former Jets general manager Mike Tannenbaum thinks the Vikings and Sorsby, who had played at Cincinnati the past 2 years, transferred to Texas Tech, and then got run afoul with gambling issues. He's announced he's going to enter the NFL supplemental draft in July, and he's expected to be picked by some NFL team in that supplemental draft, and that'd be the first time anybody's been picked in the supplemental draft since 2019, I believe. But anyway, because he's going in the supplemental draft again. Tannenbaum thinks it could be the Vikings that are in on him. ESPN's analytics writer Ben Solak did an article this week on the Worldwide Sports Leader, and he pegged the Vikings as one of 5 NFL teams who would be a good fit for Sorsby. in his column ran Friday. And then the guy who covers the Vikings all the time, and we mentioned quite frequently on the show, Purple Insider's Matt Collar, not Norcius's favorite guy by any stretch. He also wrote this week that the Vikings quarterback situation is the state that it's in now is in such a way that they should not ignore taking a shot at drafting Sorsby if the conditions are right. So, I found that interesting because I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to Sorsby, and I didn't think that the Vikings would be in the market for another young quarterback. They got 4 on the roster right now and a couple of young ones. But the main argument for the Vikings kicking the tires on Sorsby is that the Vikings have no idea who that starting quarterback will be in 2027. It could be Kyler Murray. It could be
JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, that's right. Could be JJ McCarthy. It could be some other bridge veteran guy, or it could be somebody they draft in 2027 in the first round. But that uncertainty means that if they enter into a blind bidding process to get Sorsby, and that's how the supplemental draft works, you make a bid that you hope will get the guy, but everybody else is bidding and you don't know how it works. But but the thing is that they enter a blind bidding process to get Sorsby and they work with him in 2026, is that he could be another option to solve their franchise quarterback issues. That seems to be the theory in all of this anyway. And I've never seen Sorsby play. But I did take a look on him because he's getting some chatter in the Viking sphere about this. And what I've read is that he's a talented guy. He's got a live arm. He's fast. He can scramble, which is a plus these days, almost a necessity at the quarterback position. He has the size you want in a quarterback because he's listed at 6'3" and almost 235 pounds. So he's got the size. He's got kind of Josh Allen size. He did have a 60 to 18 touchdown to interception ratio over 4 years in college, so that's good. But I do have some concerns because when I looked at his completions percentage during college, Dave, it's just 61.4%. That is not particularly high for a college quarterback who's supposed to be pretty good. And then there's the gambling stuff that got Sorsby into hot water, right? Like this spring, like he placed bets on his own team. He wagered
$90,000 reportedly worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, $90,000 worth over 4 years. Now he's completed a 35-day stint at an Arizona gambling rehabilitation center, and people can change. But he isn't the type of character that the Vikings normally bring into the building at Egan. And also there's plenty of debate about how good of a prospect Sorsby is. For one example, NFL.com's Lance Zierlein, again, he's just one voice out there and he gets stuff right and wrong, but he put out a social media post this week giving Sorsby a 6.24 grade, which is basically projects him to be an average NFL starter. So, that doesn't sound to me like a guy that you'd want to forfeit a day 2 draft pick in 2027 for, when you already got JJ McCarthy on your roster and Max Brosmer, who you think highly of, and Kyler Murray's around, right? Like I also think that the cons to bringing in Sorsby is that if there's any legs to this at all, is that I think that the Viking solution to their long-term quarterback question, they've already got some really good options in the organization. And it's either going to be, I think, Murray or McCarthy. And Dave hopes it's McCarthy. But so, we
should all hope it's McCarthy. Because if McCarthy wins, it means he's taking that next step, plus some, and he's beating out Kyler Murray. I want the best for the team. And if that's, no matter who it is, even if it's Sorsby. But we'll find out, obviously.
I also think that I can just see some other NFL teams that are way more desperate to find a long-term solution, or at least some options to that, outbidding the Vikings, right? Like the Pittsburgh Steelers come to mind. Aaron Rodgers says this is his last year, and who do they got behind him? Nobody. like really. So I can see somebody like the Steelers making a bigger gamble, putting in a higher bid in the supplemental draft for Sorsby than the Vikings would be willing to make. So
the question is, where would a team take him? How desperate are they?
Yes.
For a quarterback that could be an average starter, which is valuable. To have an average starter, he could be developed into that or more if you're good at it, and you keep his nose clean and don't have him bet and don't have him riding cars with a certain wide receiver of ours, Jordan Addison. All that sort of stuff. It's how desperate are you and what are you going to bid? Now, it's the lower, the third of the teams that finish last in the league, they get first priority. And then the middle three before the playoffs get the next, and then the playoff teams get the priority. And they put in a silent bid auction, and they'll say, I want to give my first rounder for him. Mm-hmm. And the NFL goes through the bottom three, and they go, no first rounders, middle three, no first rounders, and so on and so forth. Then they go through and go any second rounders. And the Jets may want to give them a second round. The Arizona Cardinals may want to give them a second round. Why? Because they're desperate for a quarterback. The Brownies may want to make it 8 quarterbacks on their roster and throw in a second rounder. And then you get to us. Now, is he worth a third rounder? And this is where I think teams are going to go, if I can get an average quarterback for a third rounder, yeah. Atlanta could be in that running. And it's just, okay. And then you got the guys that go, no, 4th, 5th. Would Minnesota put in a 5th rounder? And a 5th rounder, this is what Tyler likes, put in a 5th. If we get him and he sucks, no biggie. He's a 5th rounder. Mm-hmm. But it's how desperate teams are for the quarterback, and then how much they value his potential versus his potential for failure, whether it be through gambling or other off-field issues, and whether they're willing to take that risk, to take that flyer. And there's owners of teams that are more than willing to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, when I look at the uncertainty about how good Sorsby actually is as a prospect, and you add that to the gambling issues that, yes, he's gone to treatment, but
that was like, I got caught. I got to go to treatment.
Yeah, but always the potential for a relapse. This is the kind of bet, and pardon the pun, that I don't think the Vikings should be in with Sorsby, and especially when they've got McCarthy. They're still trying to develop him, and also Murray is, depending on how he plays this year, he's in the mix too. Even Max Brosmer is. I'm not saying Brosmer is a guy that you would say, oh no, we're not going to take a chance on Sorsby because we got Max Brosmer. But I don't know if Sorsby is worth giving up any draft compensation for. There's an argument to say, like Tyler was saying, a 5th rounder, a day 3. Right. Those guys are always long shots anyway. But I think, like you were saying, there's going to be teams who are more desperate, who are going to be willing to give up an earlier pick than that to get Sorsby in the supplemental draft.
Mm-hmm. And we'll find out when it happens. I'm hearing sometime next month. Mm-hmm. So it'll be at least a week before training camps open.
Well, he's having a pro day like July 10th. So
okay, and I know all 30 teams have supposedly reported they'll have people there. Mm-hmm. Which, okay, cool.
Well,
do your due diligence.
What else are you going to do on July 10th? There's no training camp, no OTAs, no mini camp. So you might as well go to a pro day and see if you see something.
Get a veteran college scout with a rookie college scout. Go, come on, let's go look. Use it as a training opportunity.
True.
Hear that, Teasley? I'm giving you some advice. But it is what it is. So, hey. Now from Brendan Sorsby, we move on to one of your favorite topics. Who's going to be Edge 3?
It is one of my favorite topics. We've talked about it quite a few times on the show. And when you look at the Vikings positional units, like one of the obvious ones where we don't have the depth that I think is really optimal is outside linebacker / edge rusher. Perfectly fine with Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel as being our starting edge rushers, but beyond them, and because we traded Jonathan Grenard to the Eagles during the draft, behind them right now is your top 3 guys options. If any of those guys get hurt and you have to have somebody play their snaps, your top options are Bo Richter, Chaz Chambliss, and Tyler Batty, and none of them at all have any track record of playing any significant snaps at the NFL level and any success with the snaps that they've had. So this has been something we talked about where we feel the Vikings are eventually going to make a move and add a veteran here to give them that edge rusher 3 who can play 400 or 500 defensive snaps in 2026 if necessary, give Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner a blow, or God forbid, if one of them misses a significant amount of time, and last year Andrew Van Ginkel did miss a significant amount of time, that they step in there and take over their snaps. And it isn't Bo Richter. Yeah, it isn't Bo Richter or Chaz Chambliss or Tyler Batty, who we don't know what kind of level of play we're going to get from them. We've talked about some of those options. There's some veterans out there who still have not signed with NFL teams, whether it's Leonard Floyd or AJ Espinoza.
Espinoza has signed.
Did he?
I hate to break it to you. Yeah, he signed with the Eagles.
Oh well, there they go. So you see, he's off the market. But Kyle Van Noy is another guy, Hassan Reddick is also out there as another guy. So is Joey Bosa. But one name that we haven't talked about was brought up by Sports Illustrated this week is as a former Viking, Za'Darius Smith. He retired suddenly mid-season last year, but what Sports Illustrated reported last week was that the Eagles have taken him off their retired reserve list, and the belief is that that move signifies that Smith is considering unretiring from the NFL and playing in 2026. And so is Za'Darius Smith a guy that the Vikings could bring in as a veteran edge rusher to be that guy to give you some insurance behind Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel? And Smith, he last played for us in 2022. He played that one season and didn't play anymore. He's 34 years old now, so there's a question about what does he have left? Well, that's at the same age as Leonard Floyd. Kyle Van Noy is actually older than Za'Darius Smith, but when Za'Darius Smith last year played with the Eagles, I think he only played over 100 and some defensive snaps, but PFF graded him at a 77.1, gave him a 77.1 grade. They gave him 10 pressures over those 183 defensive snaps, I believe, which is solid. So it looks like last year Smith could still get after the quarterback, even though he only had 1.5 sacks, but he didn't get a whole lot of playing time either. Could he be an option for the Vikings? Again, he's familiar with the organization. Kevin O'Connell knows what Za'Darius Smith is all about. We really believe, I think the belief was that the Vikings liked him. They would have preferred to have kept him in 2023, but Smith wanted more money. And and the Vikings weren't quite willing to pay that. And he had to drop off in production in the second half of the season. But the question is whether Brian Flores feels that Za'Darius Smith is a good fit for the 3-4 system and the defense that he runs. I don't know, but there are indications from how Smith played last year, at least from some of the numbers you see, that he still has some decent football left in him. And if you're getting him and you're telling him, hey man, you're going to be you're going to be a guy who plays, you're not going to be a starter. You're going to be a guy who plays a certain amount of snaps every game, maybe 15 snaps. But if Turner or Van Ginkel get hurt, then you get elevated to the starting role and you might play more. I think it's potentially that Smith could really be able to handle that role at his age. We just don't know at this point in time, but the edge rusher position, interestingly, whether it's Smith or whoever it is that the Vikings may sign, I think that's going to be the first really significant roster decision that Nolan Teasley is going to make as a general manager, where we get an idea about what kind of players he's looking for, who does he value in adding to that roster. I think edge rusher is that really spot where it's an obvious the Vikings need some upgrades there or more depth. They're right now they're standing pat, but I don't think they're going to stand pat for the entire offseason. And again, I think this is going to be where Teasley gives us our first indication of what kind of player does he think needs to be a Viking who can take us to a championship. And it's going to be at the edge rusher position. And maybe it's going to be Za'Darius Smith if he is interested in coming back to the NFL. Something to monitor.
Yeah, something to monitor. It's going to be interesting whether Teasley, feels the need to do that.
Right.
And who he goes out and get. Because anybody at this point in time, you're looking at veteran minimum plus a little bit. If you're getting a big name like Za'Darius Smith or any of the other older guys they're proven commodities. Now they're up there on the age, and you wonder, they're obviously on the downside of the cliff, but how far down are they, and can you squeeze out a little bit more juice out of them is the question. But it's going to be interesting because you're right. That's one of the positions that we do not have proven depth behind.
And I'm sure the Vikings they've seen Batty and Chambliss and Richter work in the OTAs, but they may let it ride out part of training camp and see how things go. And are any of them emerging as guys who are taking that next step or two where they could play a significant amount of defensive snaps if asked? But I think that I think the answer to that is probably going to be that no, they can't. And the Vikings are going to have to make a move to add a veteran to the room if any decent options are still available. And
Brev says here, it's got to be Clowney or Joey Bosa. All solid options. Yeah, that could be too.
Well, yeah, like we know Clowney had 7.5 sacks last year or something for Dallas. He had an impact, but and he's been a suitcase, the past 5 or 6 years. He's playing for a different team every year. So 1 year stopgap option, certainly a guy that you think the Vikings would consider. But again, who does Teasley consider like a Viking player? We still don't know that. And the edge rusher position is going to be, I think, the spot where the Vikings, would they add somebody or not? That'll tell us a little bit about what Teasley values and how he plans on building this roster as he grows into the general manager position.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting. Sorry to read T-Bass. Get better soon. Get it all fixed so you're back to normal and chasing iguanas for cookouts. Now, that's the show, folks. We appreciate you staying up later than normal, rather than a 4 o'clock start. We had a 7:30 start, thanks to Darren. Any last
Blame it on
words there,
me.
Darren?
Blame it on me. No, I don't. We'll just, we're sort of in the dead zone for the NFL news, but we'll be back here next Sunday talking about the Vikings and trying to come up with interesting content for the folks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we will. Now, tomorrow night, a reminder on the Real Forno show, if you are a member of Vikings First and SKOL, you still have tonight to submit the form so we can verify, and you can join us live on the air. Ask us any question you want. Dave, why is your beard so beautiful? Or whatever it is, and we will answer. But that'll be tomorrow night. So, and it's going to be normal time as usual. So, what do we say to everybody?
We say, SKOL Vikings, thanks for watching and thanks for commenting, folks. Appreciate it.
Yep, you guys all rock, and SKOL Vikings. Happy Father's Day.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcasts as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!